Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of The Great Game. As of recording this episode, it has been 5 months since the previous episode. As such, I want to do something different. Instead of recapping the events of the previous episode, I want to recap some of the civilizations that have risen up in this series. Give sort of an abridged timeline of the series to this point, right? So when we first started, this was a true start location Earth map. True start location meaning every civilization starts in a historical capital or a major city if they wouldn't have a capital otherwise. And we have seen various powers rise to the forefront, right? We see figures such as Joseph Stalin of the Soviet Union, Sundiata Keita of Mali, Getulio Vargas of Brazil, and Tecumseh of the Shawnee. All these figures are competing in this great game, as we might put it, to see who can conquer the world first. Of course, all the leaders were mentioned directly in the new intro cinematic animation that I did myself. So I hope you all enjoyed that. We might not see it too often, but still I thought it was a nice way to open the episode. Beyond that, I don't think there's too much to say. We haven't seen any civilizations be completely wiped off the map yet. We have seen the fall of civilizations such as Karelia under Vainamoinen, who lost the city of Utua and Aunis to the Soviet Union. We also do know that the Shawnee under Tecumseh are currently facing a large coalition against them, with the major powers of the coalition being the Shoshone under Washakia, the Comanche under Iron Jacket, and the United States under Theodore Roosevelt. Now, right before we get into the actual action proper, I do have to do my usual sentiment of, hey, if you're new to this channel, if you're watching this series from the first episode, or even if you're just watching from episode 13, please be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe so you can support the channel. Thank you very much. Let's get on with the show. Now, we pick up with the Shawnee Coalition War. The Shawnee are still very much on the defensive, and we can see that they have just lost their city of Jupe to the Comanche. The city of Jupe was previously taken from the Comanche by the Shawnee in a former war, but now that tensions have heated up, and the Comanche are very much taking the opportunity to get whatever lands they can in this war. We also see that Karelia is still on their own defensive against the Soviet Union, and Karelia is not in a great position. Of course, they've not got a lot of land to settle, and all the land they can settle is not that great. That said, they have been defending these lands fairly well after the loss of Aunis and Utua. I have no idea if I'm pronouncing those city names correctly. I'm sure I will be corrected at some point in time. In any case, we can see that Karelia just continues to fend off. There's not too much to say. Moving on, we can see the Mongolian city of Bayankhongor is under siege by Goryeo units. We turn now over to Central Asia to see that our two Persian civilizations, the Afsharids in white and the Achaemenids in blue, are still fighting with one another. They have been at each other's throats since the very beginning of the game. This whole conflict essentially started because the Afsharids forward settled the Achaemenids, and the Achaemenids then took that city. And ever since, there has been no peace in the Persian lands. It is a tragic scene, and we move on to see Europe. Now, in Europe, there is one figure that stands as a controversial pick, and that is Joseph Stalin of the Soviet Union. They have been not exactly a fan favorite, but a very powerful presence in the game, much like they were in history. And of course, the Golden Horde has declared war on the Soviet Union and is now besieging Kyiv. Furthermore, we see that the Comanche are attacking the Shawnee settlement of Katowice. Now, while I have a little bit of time, just a little, right, I do want to mention that we do have villainous figures in this game, such as Papa Doc Valier in Haiti, Juan Manuel de Rosas in Argentina, and of course, Joseph Stalin in the Soviet Union. These figures do stand a significant chance to win, especially Stalin, who's doing a pretty good job right now. We do not necessarily endorse these figures, and keep in mind, we just included historical figures based on what we thought were cool, what we thought had good designs. I say we, really it was all my decision making, but I did have some friends helping me. I did mention Koyat previously, who currently runs the Civ Battle Royale. Moving on, we can see that Bangladesh is still progressing in their war with the Mughals, and the city of Multan has taken some damage. Beyond that, we can even see that Mali is still at war with the Alawites in Morocco. Alawite Morocco is led by Ismail ibn Sharif, and Mali, of course, is led by Sundiata Keita. I do also want to shout out some mentionable background figures such as Nigeria under Olusegun Obasanjo and Carthage under Hannibal Barca. As we progress, we get to see some of these sort of counter-offensives that, first off, the Mughals launching against the various forces they are at war with in their territories. We do see in the background that Joseph Stalin has received yet another enemy in the form of Yemen's Arwa al-Sulaim. To the north, we can see that the Karakitai under Yeludashi and Qin under Qin Shi Huang have been settling the Tarim Basin. We can even see Atil right there, settled by the Golden Horde on the Caspian Sea. Now, I have heard various complaints or critiques about the video format for an AI game. I know it's not everyone's cup of tea. I personally really like it, and I do intend to continue with developing this series because I think it's a lot of fun to develop. Really, I don't think there's anything wrong with just making video content for the sake of it being fun to watch and produce. We move forward to see that the Shoshone are facing a little bit of a counterattack from the Shawnee, and we're going to see that more in depth here as we get to the Shawnee's turn. But really, the Shawnee have dwindled their forces significantly. Katowice is almost entirely surrounded by Comanche forces with no melee or ranged units to defend it. Now, I will say, near Mekwachake we see a little bit of a defense force. There's none of that near Katowice, and there is absolutely abysmal forces defending Beishtan. There's one trireme. Provincetown has a significant defense, sure, but that is to be expected of a capital city. Meanwhile, you get Shawnee cities like Agaidaka being able to produce warriors at an equal amount to just whittle away the remnants of Shawnee's armies. Well, I guess spearmen now. We might even be seeing some swordsmen. But that aside, we do see some very important news in the bottom right hand side of the screen. That's right, the Khanty under Allah have declared war on Joseph Stalin's Soviet Union. Now, although things have generally been favorable for Stalin up to this point, we do see that Batu Khan's Golden Horde will start besieging Kyiv. Further, we see that the Mongolian city of Bayan Khongor will take some damage as Goryeo continues their siege of Bayan Khongor, which I am having a very fun time pronouncing. Bayan Hangor. Now, over in Western Europe, we see that England is still continuing with their war against Portugal, and they have begun a naval siege of the Portuguese city of Porto. Portugal is, of course, launching a staunch counteroffensive, and we do see that Portugal has another settler. I'm not sure where it's going to be heading. There doesn't seem to be much land in Iberia left for it to settle, so maybe we'll see some of those colonies going about. Moving back to the Soviet Union, we can see their defense against the Golden Horde, and also their offensive against Karelia. Now, in regards to their defense against the Golden Horde, I do want to say the Golden Horde has a very intimidating presence right outside of Kyiv. And I am saying Kyiv, even though we have two cities named Kyiv, yes. Because the city names are spelled differently, we have one with an IE and one with a YI. I don't know what to do about this. I suppose if you want to suggest city names to replace one of, well, I would replace the Soviet Union city of Kiev. We can name it whatever the fuck we want. I have in-game editor always active just in case I need to like adjust things, or if there's like a bug and something's causing a crash, I can fix that. So, in the comment section below, leave your suggestions for names for the city of Kiev to be replaced with. Moving on, we see that Alawite Morocco is doing its best. You know, not everyone's best is that good though. Sometimes you get the little kid playing at T-ball of city defense and nation building. We see that quite clearly here with the Ottomans. The Ottomans have a lot of potential, and they are a very fun civilization under Orhan. They started it so good, and yes, there was some potential for them to get boxed in like they did, but they had opportunities to break out, and they have squandered them all. Moving on from the Ottomans, though, we come to another disappointer in the Apsherids. You know, I say disappointed. They're actually really fun, even if they're not doing that well. They are a very competitive civ, and I love that. Even though they suck right now, they have been fighting for most of their goddamn lives. And speaking of fighting for most of their goddamn lives, we see Brazil declaring war on Argentina under Juan Manuel de Rosas. Brazil is led by, I don't know whether to call them, like, I think Getulio Vargas ruled for several different periods of Brazil's history, but generally that World War II period. Now, Getulio Vargas is a little bit of a more gray area-ish leaders. I believe they're somewhat revered in Brazil, but also very controversial at the same time, you know? And that's reflected also in other figures like, I wouldn't say Joseph Tito. Joseph Tito is actually fairly revered here. Same with Zelensky, but there is controversy to these two figures elsewhere. And again, this is just another example of history is not always perfect. We get a lot of figures that aren't exactly romantic or heroic. Like, sure, we get Washaki for the Shoshone, and we have Louis Riel leading the Métis. Theodore Roosevelt is a pretty popular figure in the United States of America. I don't think he's that popular in the Philippines, I'm gonna guess. I don't think he's that popular in Puerto Rico. I don't know. I haven't been to either of those places, but I can tell you there's a lot of people who hate America, especially right now. I'm not going to comment any further on that scenario, but let's just say, you know, I really want this to be over at some point. I don't know if I mean 2026 already just needs to end. It's been one hell of a year. We're on January 11th as of recording this exact moment. It is 4:30 a.m. I am dying. Dear Lord, what a year. I want you to know that sometimes I just put in my ramblings, knowing that I could record another take and hopefully get better audio recordings. We do see the Khanty beginning to besiege Sverdlovsk, but as we move on from my emotional and spiritual turmoil, we see that Barzbek of the Kyrgyz has declared war on Mongolia under Sakyakin Elbek-Dorj. However, we do not have enough time to witness the consequences of that yet, as the Golden Horde under Batu Khan besieged Kiev down to yellow health. Speaking of being besieged down to yellow health, Bayan Khongor is facing exactly that same scenario. It might even go down to red this turn. Let's watch very closely. Yes! It goes down to red. Now, Alawite Morocco is not in a great starting position, and I will be the first to admit that the true start location Earth map is not fairly balanced. They are not doing well, and I feel like part of that is a consequence of them having only a little bit of land to settle before it's just mountains and desert. But hey, I feel like they also did fumble a little bit. It's not entirely like, oh, this was out of their hands. They never stood a chance. No, they have more of a chance than Tonga. Remember Tonga? Tonga's in this game. You don't remember Tonga because they don't do shit. They have no neighbors, and they have, I think, 3 cities at this point. I don't recall. They could have 2 or 3. You'll never know. We'll see them later, I'm sure. I know I have plenty of footage of Tonga, and I'm just trying to fill in time as we see a bunch of naval battles happening in the background, as we move on to see the Soviet Union's counterattacks to, first off, the Golden Horde, but also their offensive towards Karelia. They really don't have much of an offensive line near Karelia anymore, but it is still a consequential war in the sense that it has brought them war declarations against them. And, dear Lord, Kyiv does not look like it's in a great position right now. Furthermore, the Swedes have made peace with Karelia, realizing that, hey, maybe we gotta not pull a Soviet Union. We don't want to pull a Stalin. Now, moving on, we see the Comanche besieging the Shawnee city of Katowice down to below half health. It's still in the yellow, but not looking great at all. We transition over to see Mongolia and its current defenses, and also the enormous invasion force that the Kyrgyz have heading straight towards Ulaanbaatar. Yeah, Bayan Khongor is looking like it's going to be a loss at this point, but maybe they can defend Ulaanbaatar and Erdenet. Darkhan, however, does not look to be in the best position, though there isn't really much of an invasion force around Sismuli yet. In Ukraine, we see that they have settled the city of Mykolaiv. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. I do not want to piss off the Ukrainians at this moment in time. Now, one thing I want to broach, since we are talking about contemporary politics with Zelensky, and I have to be clear on this, my stance is solidly with Ukraine and President Volodymyr Zelensky in their resistance to Russian imperialism. I'm making this clear because apparently my country does not seem to support any other country's sovereignty at this moment in time. I don't want to say too much more on this subject. or rather, I want to say more. I don't think that would be very interesting for a lot of my viewers. If you want to hear me talk about, contemporary politics, maybe I'll do something like that one of these days. But for now, let's just look at the pretty colors fighting each other. Let's focus on the fake wars rather than the real ones. Now, as we transition to see how the Persian Civil War is going on, we can see that the Khamenids don't really have much of an invasion force near Mashhad. I don't think Mashhad's any real threat, especially with the archers defending it. But there are some things I want to point out. We get to see a bit of the Umayyads territory, and as we move on to South America, we get to see that Brazil has a very impressive invasion force heading straight towards Buenos Aires and Santiago del Estero. Hopefully I pronounced those names correctly, but since we are going into the subject of a war Brazil has started, Brazil's war theme! I love it! It is my favorite war theme in base Civilization 5. Now, this will lead me to my second question of the episode. What is your guys' favorite piece of war theme in Sid Meier's Civilization 5? My favorite piece theme is Portugal's, and my favorite war theme, of course, is Brazil's. Oddly fitting that they're in combination with one another. But, regardless, we see Ukraine is defending their homelands as they should from foreign invasion. In the background, we do see that Mali has made peace with the Alawite Morocco. I almost said the Umayyads, but ignore that. And Karelia has made peace with the Swedes. I think I actually mentioned that previously, but we're bringing it up again. Egypt has also made peace with the Ottomans under Orhan. Turning over as we come to the conclusion of this one turn. Yes, we're now turn 111. Woo! Yay! That's a celebration-worthy turn, I guess. The Shawnee are still fucked. Right? Katowice is surrounded by Comanche units. They have fucking a catapult now. We're starting to see siege units. That's terrifying. I also do like to sit in the Shoshone territory near Kushundeka. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly. We can see the Shoshone unique unit, or at least one of them, the Daigwani. The Daigwani is a unique great general replacement, and normally it has some very passive support effects. I had to remove them because they were causing a crash. Simply put. As such, whereas in a lot of other AI games, the Shoshone do seem to be overpowered, in this one, they might not be as powerful as they have performed in other AI games. If they do still seem to be overpowered in some way, I will rectify that, but right now it seems fine. Now, Brazil is still fighting with Argentina, and Juan Manuel de Rosas is not exactly a popular figure. I don't know if he's going to get much foreign support or intervention in this war. Speaking of unpopular figures, Joseph Stalin is continuing their invasion of Karelia, a war that has brought them a lot of ire from various nations, including the Khanty, who are now besieging the Soviet city of Sverdlovsk. Now, the Khanty have a very important unit to mention, the Swordsmen. This is an upgrade from the warriors we have been seeing. Those little axe dudes, yeah, they upgraded to swords. And those swords will upgrade into bigger swords eventually. But for now, these are one of the strongest units we can see on the map. We also see that the Soviet Kiev, which we can rename at any point, and I'm probably going to end up doing that at some point, is taking a lot of fucking damage, dropping to red health as Batu Khan's Golden Horde demolishes the city. It does not yet flip to Golden Horde hands, but it is looking fairly close to falling. Speaking of fairly close to falling, we see the Mongolian city of Bayan Khongor, the city whose name I love to repeat to myself while I'm lying awake at night, unsure what to make of the world. let's not get into existential stuff. And keep things cheery. War! We love war in this channel. War is good for my bank account, I guess. I don't really make money off this channel. Not yet. Maybe it'll happen one day, maybe it won't. I don't mind. I do this for fun. Speaking of fun, Egypt and Ukraine have declared war on Carthage. Egypt, of course, being the more relevant factor in this war. But that aside, we also see that England has completed the Parthenon, giving them another wonder and a great work of art in that wonder. Now that I think of it, it might actually be a great work of writing. I don't recall. It's been a while since I've actually built the Parthenon. You know, I don't really play cultural games in Civilization 5. I don't like culture in Civilization 5. My favorite victory type is diplomacy, which is a very controversial opinion. But I like it, you know, I like befriending people, I like dealing with city-states. It's simple fun for me. And they're very fun to design civilizations around. I've designed a lot of civilizations, such as Karelia, around diplomatic victories. Now, as we move on, we see the Soviet counteroffensive to the Golden Horde, which is just not really going to save Kyiv. Sverdlovsk is at least a little well defended because there's only a couple Conti units surrounding it, and until Conti sends in reinforcements, they're not really going to be able to do too much. Around Uchwa, of course, they're still engaging in an offensive against Karelia. For whatever reason, they really could make peace at some point, but they aren't. Now, oh, Sarko. I just wanted to make a note of that city because it's actually the capital of my civilization, the Pechenegs, which released a while back, and I think I commented on them previously, as part of the Slav-Ukrainian mod pack. Slav-Ukrainian mod pack, of course, includes President Volodymyr Zelensky's Ukraine, and right now, we are about to see a very important moment as Katowice will, in fact, fall to the Comanche. Now, the Shawnee have lost any sort of territorial advantage they even had against the Comanche, of course. They lost their previously captured city of Jupe. The Comanche have settled the city of Panaiste. And, of course, now the Comanche have captured Katowice. Furthermore, we can see Mongolia's resistance to Goryeo invasion nearby on Holngor, and of course, the war that was previously declared on them by the Kyrgyz in black to the left side of the screen. I guess if you use cardinal directions, they're on the west. So, we also get a good look at Nigeria, which is not in Nigeria right now. Ibadan, Kano, and Enugu, I don't know how to pronounce that, are currently right near Uganda's city of Mulago. Uganda, of course, I included partially because they were going to be featured in Civilization 7, and I'm very happy about that. I like Uganda. Not my favorite civilization in Civilization 7. Mine is Tonga, because they actually did a really good job with that civilization, in spite of them butchering Iceland. That's my personal opinion, though. You know, I get to have a little bit of commentary in here. It's not all just the game. There's a little bit of me in there. I sprinkle some salt. I'm like the salt buy of... Oh my god, that meme's expired. I'm a boomer now. Fuck. As we move on from my existential dread and my realization of my own mortality, we see that Brazil is continuing their offensive against Argentina, but we also see that there is a religion in South America, Pachalanca. This is one of Tomatek's historical religions. I used the historical religions complete mod pack, simply because I think it adds a nice little flavor. It doesn't have really any gameplay effect other than adding more religions. I think it adds some more Pantheon bonuses, but I'm not 100% sure on that. Regardless, I think it's a wonderful mod. I think every AI game would be incomplete without it. And as such, it is featured here. Moving on, we can see the Ottomans continuing their futile effort to fight against the Umayyads, who have settled way too many cities, thus boxing in Orhan's empire. With all that out of the way, I have been Kazia. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye!